The galaxy had always been a realm of great wonders, ruled by civilizations far more advanced than the human race could ever dream of. But in the outermost reaches of the universe, beyond the maps of even the most seasoned explorers, a planet named Lidara thrived in its isolation. The Lidaran species, known for their terrifying power and ruthless conquest, had once again expanded their territory, leaving no room for mercy in their wake. Among these creatures was Queen Zira, a commanding figure among her people, feared and respected by all. Her strength was unmatched, her intellect sharp as the blade of a warrior, and her cruelty legendary. But as fate would have it, during a violent skirmish with an opposing alien faction, she was captured and brought low. The forces that took her were not of the Lidaran species, but rather a group of rogue mercenaries from a far-off world. They had no respect for the Lidaran queen's strength, believing that they could break her as they had broken so many others before. Zdira, bound by energy chains and left in a metal cage, stood at the mercy of her captors. The power she once wielded now seemed as distant as the stars above her. The mercenaries, not knowing the full scope of the creature they had captured, held her with disdain, mocking her and taunting her every chance they got. But they had no idea who they were dealing with. On the fringes of their camp, a figure emerged from the shadows. A man, primitive in his appearance, his clothes tattered from the harsh environments of his homeworld, walked with a silent determination. His name was Hunter, an outcast from his people, stranded on this strange planet after an unfortunate accident during a routine exploration mission. Alone, without the technology or resources to contact Earth, Hunter had adapted, learning the ways of the planet and its harsh terrains. His human instincts, sharp and honed from years of survival, had become his greatest asset. His hands were rough from years of hard labor, and his eyes, though filled with the wisdom of survival, betrayed a quiet rage. His people had always been underestimated, seen as weak and primitive by the more advanced civilizations in the galaxy. But that was their mistake. As he neared the mercenary camp, he noticed the subtle movements of the alien guards. He had learned their patterns, studied their behavior. It was clear they were not prepared for the level of threat that could come from a human, especially one who had learned the ways of the wild. They were too busy basking in their false sense of superiority to notice the approaching storm. Hunter had seen the cage where Queen Zira was kept, and the idea of leaving her to the mercenaries made his blood boil. This was not a matter of diplomacy or conquest. It was a matter of survival. Zira, though an alien and a fierce one at that, represented something Hunter understood deeply: strength. A strength that, if broken, could never be regained. His eyes narrowed as he crept closer. He reached for the hidden weapons on his body. Nothing extravagant, just tools and devices he had scavenged from the wreckage of his ship and the surrounding landscape. A small energy blade, a wrist-mounted grappling hook, and a few explosive charges. Hunter moved swiftly and silently, taking down guards one by one, using the environment to his advantage. He knew they would never expect a human, especially one with no advanced technology, to be capable of such a feat. As he infiltrated the mercenary base, he felt an adrenaline-fueled rush. It was a reminder of why he had survived for so long. When he reached the cage where Queen Zira was held, the sight of her made him pause. She was regal even in her imprisonment, her eyes glowing with an intensity that could strike fear into any foe. Her once pristine armor was now tarnished and torn, but the raw power in her gaze remained undiminished. "Why are you here, human?" Her voice was low, full of suspicion, but also curiosity. Hunter gave her a wry smile, his voice rough but steady. "To rescue you." Zira's eyes flickered with something resembling amusement. "You think you can defeat these mercenaries and free me?" she asked, her tone mocking but laced with respect for the bravery it must take to try. "I don't need to defeat them all. Just enough," Hunter replied, already working on the energy field around her cage with quick, efficient movements. He had studied the technology before, and while it wasn't human, his instincts told him what to do. Within moments, the cage door hissed open, and Zira stepped out, towering over Hunter, her movements powerful and fluid. She stretched, testing her regained freedom, and then fixed him with a sharp look. "You're an interesting human," she said, her voice softer now. I underestimated you. Hunter didn't respond immediately. Instead, he gestured toward the chaos outside. We've got work to do. The sound of approaching mercenaries broke the silence. They had been alerted to the disturbance and were now rushing to the cage. Zira's eyes gleamed with hunger for battle. I won't let them leave here alive, she growled. Hunter didn't need her to say it twice. They moved in unison, as if their fates had been entwined from the very beginning. Zira unleashed her full might, tearing through the mercenaries with ease while Hunter used his cunning to take down the remaining forces. When the last of the mercenaries fell, the camp was eerily silent. Hunter, breathing heavily, wiped the blood from his brow and looked up at the leader and queen. Zira stood over the battlefield like a force of nature, her glowing eyes scanning the horizon. You have saved me, she said, her voice now filled with respect. Not many would dare defy my enemies for someone like me. Why? Hunter simply met her gaze. I know what it's like to be underestimated, and I don't think it's a mistake that we both ended up here. Maybe this galaxy isn't as big as it seems after all. Zira's lips curved into a slight smile, her first since their encounter. You may be primitive, but you are not weak. I've had to survive, he replied, the hint of a smile tugging at his own lips. And just like that, in the vast, cold expanse of space, an unlikely alliance had been forged, one that would change the course of their futures. Perhaps the galaxy itself. For the first time, both the human and the alien queen understood that sometimes strength isn't defined by advanced technology or weaponry. It's defined by the will to fight, to survive, and to never be broken.